Right, in our previous lesson, we spoke about primary data and secondary data, and we are looking at how to collect data. Now, in our lesson today, we're going to be looking at two types of data called discrete data and continuous data. Now, data can be qualitative if you can only use words to describe it. So, for example, if I'm interested in colors of cars passing by my house, then I can only use the word red, for example, to describe the color of that car, or I can use words like yellow to describe the color of that car, or I could say pink. So data that can only be described using words, we call that qualitative data. For example, the colors of cars that are passing, or the genders of people in a car. Say, for example, the boys, girls, and stuff. So if you can only use one to describe the data, then that is qualitative. So qualitative means descriptive. Now, quantitative means numbers. Some other data can be described using numbers. For example, the number of students in a class. That will just be basically quantitative. Or the height of plants in a garden. That will be quantitative because they can take numbers. Okay. Now, when it comes to quantitative, these numbers, we can divide them into two, called discrete or continuous. Now, with discrete data are basically data that will take particular values of numbers. Say, for example, the number of students in a class could be 20, could be 25, could be 30, could be 7, and so on. So they can only take particular numbers. Okay. Now, when it comes to continuous data, then we're talking about data that are quantitative that can take all type of values, including decimal numbers, fractions. Say, for example, the height of students. The height of students could be something like 120.5 centimeters. Okay, it could be something like 119.2 centimeters. Could be something like 1.4 meters. It could be something like 1.25 meter. So you can see that they will take any kind of value. Now, to find continuous data, we'll always need to measure. So to derive or to get this kind of information, you'll always have to measure. For example, measuring the height of students or measuring the weights of some masses in front of me. Let's say, for example, measuring the weight of fruits like bananas or apples in a basket. You'll always have to measure to get continuous data. Now, with discrete, you can't measure. You'll always have to count them. For example, the number of students or the number of cars. You have to count to get discrete, but you have to measure to get continuous. Okay. Now, both discrete and continuous are quantitative because they're numbers. Okay. Right. So what I want you to do now, if you want to pause the video quickly and try question quickly. Pause the video and try question. Right. So hope you try that. It says, say whether the following data is qualitative, discrete, or quantitative or continuous. Now, the hometowns of 10 people. If you're talking about hometowns of 10 people, you're going to be using words to describe that. So that's going to be qualitative because you're going to be using words like Portsmouth, London, Manchester. You're going to be using words to describe that. So that's qualitative. The weights of the bags of potatoes on a sale in a greengrocer. Now here, you're talking about the weights. The weights will take numbers. For example, you can say 2 kilograms. Okay. Or you can say something like 1.5 kilograms. Or you can say something like 50.9 grams. Okay, so this will be the numbers. You're going to be having numbers there. So straight away, it's going to be quantitative. But because you are getting them by measuring, and because they can take any value, including decimals and fraction, we say they are continuous. Okay. For C, the number of students in each class at a school. The number of students you can only obtain by counting. So again, it's going to be discrete quantitative data. Okay. So that will be the answers to that, as they should be in exam if you are trying them. Okay. Right. So then what I want you to do, if you want to just pause the video and try question 1 all the way to 10, please. So you're just describing this, whether they are qualitative or discrete quantitative or discrete continuous. So pause the video and try question 1 all the way to question 10. Right, so I hope you've tried them. So all I'm going to do now is to pick random questions. So I'm going to try question 10 for you. It says the hair colors of 50 people. How can you describe hair color using words? And because of that, it's going to be qualitative. Okay, qualitative. Now, number 5, the heights of 100 tomato plants. The heights, you can only get the height by measuring. And the heights, the answers will be numbers. So that's going to be continuous quantitative. Okay, it's going to be continuous. Number 8, the length of 30 worms. The length of something you can obtain by measuring. And it can be a decimal, it could be a fraction. So that's going to be continuous. Okay. So what I want to do is just pause the video and mark the answers quickly. So pause the video and use these answers to mark your work quickly. Okay, hope you've done well on that. I would like you now to pause the video and try question 11, which is more challenging, typical exam question. So try question 11, please. Okay, so hope you try that. He says Gemma thinks there's a link between the average number of chocolate bars eaten each week by pupils in her class and how fast they can run. So she might be thinking that those who consume a lot of chocolates can run faster than those who consume less. So she might be thinking of that. So describe 2 sets of data Gemma should collect to investigate this link. Number 1 is going to be the average number of chocolate bars each student consumes every week. Number 2 would be how fast the time they take to do 100 meters. Okay. Question B, describe suitable methods for collecting the data. Now, as for the number of chocolate bars, she can do a questionnaire, so then the students can answer that. So doing a questionnaire and giving it out to the students, and they will tell her how many on average are the chocolate bars they consume. But as for the 100 meters, she can now go out in the field with them, get them run, do 100 meters, and all she needs to do is to use a stopwatch to time them and to clock it. Okay? Now, question C, say whether each set of data is discrete data or continuous data. Now, the average number of chocolate bars, we're not talking about the weight of chocolate bars, we're talking about the number. So that's going to be how many there are. So that's going to be discrete because you can count them and they'll be whole numbers. Now, as for the time taken to do 100 meters or the speed, that's going to be continuous because it can be decimal and you have to measure that. Question D, say whether each set of data is primary data or secondary. The average number of chocolate bars would be primary because she's actually designing a questionnaire and she's asking them to fill it up. So she's the one obtaining this. As for the distance, the speed how fast they're doing 100 meters will again be primary because she's taking them to the field and she's just timing them herself. So that's going to be primary. Okay. So if you just want to pause the video again and use the answers here to just mark your work, please. So pause the video and use these answers to mark your work. Okay, hope you done well on that. So that's going to be the end of our 3rd lesson on collecting data.